You are listening to the Marvel Training Podcast.
What shoe am I?
What shoe are you? You're a shoe man. Shit shoe man.
Shit shoe.
Now, do you know what it is? It's white socks. It's just the white socks that does me.
Well, they're just thick.
You should get this in.
It's in.
It's in. There you go. It's a white sock, man. It's more a fact of you wear white socks when you're a kid for like PE, don't you?
Yeah.
And tennis players wear white socks.
And Michael Jackson wears white
And
socks.
Michael Jackson, you, tennis players, and infant school kids doing PE.
Yeah, well, I want my feet to be warm, so they're thick white socks.
Black socks are quite warm, you know.
Yeah, no, these white ones are very thick, that's all.
But I don't know, I like...
Every time he sees me white socks, he has to say something to me.
I just can't see past it, because all you can see is Michael Jackson, or it just infuriates me.
Moonwalk.
If you've got
across that stage.
If you've got white trainers, they kind of hide them a little bit. But you've got black trainers on with blue jeans and the white socks.
Well, thankfully the camera's not on my white socks, so we're alright.
To be fair, these grey ones are just as bad, to be fair.
Yeah, but they hide, don't they? They blend in, whereas the white is...
It stands out.
Yeah. Especially when like the jean rides up a bit. It's there, isn't it? White's there.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Well,
we've got a fashionista here.
Yeah, as you can see, the guru. This is my training attire, thank you very much.
Is that your daily
comfortable clothing? Yeah, to be fair,
what about the Marvel training?
So we do wear Marvel polos,
but
I tend to wear like tracksuit bottoms, but relatively smart ones.
Okay.
As far as tracksuit bottoms go, because a lot of it is jumping down on the floor, bending over. You are sort of basically crawling about on the floor for 3 quarters of the day. So when you do it in jeans, it's uncomfortable. To be fair, pair of trainers, relatively smart tracksuit bottoms, and just a polo shirt, and then maybe like a fleece or something. Just obviously this time of year.
Which, to be fair, we probably need to get some proper gear, don't we? We can do soon. Get some like proper like fleeces and whatnot.
Yeah. But we marvelled up with polo shirts.
And the van, what we'll get into.
The
van's looking well.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to the Marvel Training Podcast 103 with me, Richard,
Ash,
and Dan.
Let's think about it.
who you were.
Yeah.
Let's get into Dan's week. As he's mentioned, he has to dress comfortable, and that is probably due to the long drive you've been putting in this week, Dan.
Comfortable clothing because I'm getting heavier. Marks and Spencer's elastic waistbands on that. Good week. Lot of travelling, but a good week. Been over to Bolton, been to Whiz Beach, which is pretty much in
Is it Whiz Beach or Whizbeck?
I'd say Whiz Beach.
How do you spell it?
It's BECH. But
is there a beach there?
No. But there's got to be other areas that you could have quite had to.
Yeah. It could be one for our listeners and followers. Please do tell us.
It could be one.
Is it Whiz Beach or Whizbeck?
I reckon Whiz Beach. I reckon it's something that Rich could be googling as we speak now to check.
That ruins the fun though, doesn't it?
No, I'd quite like to know. But what I will say is it's absolutely middle of nowhere, and it's an awful drive to get to from Sheffield.
Is it near Norwich?
Yeah, it's kind of halfway between Boston and... Well, it's not far from King's Lynn.
Alright, yeah.
But yeah, the trouble is it's all like single track A roads. So you get stuck, I said to you earlier, you get stuck behind a tractor, and that's it, you aren't moving. Until you hit a dual carriageway, and that dual carriageway might be half a mile long, and then you're back to single track again. It's an absolute nightmare. But good day, teaching basic first aid to secondary school students, year 8, so sort of 12, 13 year old. Me and 4 other trainers, so split into 5 classes, all teaching something different. So this session I would kind of focused on like what to do if you find someone choking or find someone having a seizure, someone with burns or any sort of major cuts. Other people were focusing like what to do with CPR, how to open people's airways, that's called the recovery position. So the kids basically get a full day's worth of CPR training, choking training, what to do in to a seizure. Very good, to be fair. Bolton were a different one. Bolton were working for a care company, moving and handling training, so like safest way to move people, care on patients and service users. And it were about half a mile from the world famous Phoenix Club. So I were going to call in and have a quick pint on my way home. To be honest, I was busting for the toilets. I thought, I can do that, I can get a quick drink, take a photo and go, I've had a pint in Phoenix Club. And it was shut. So took a photo outside, and then basically got back on my way, found the McDonald's and stopped there and went to the toilet there. And then a couple of days local in Sheffield, so not too much driving, so that was good. And that was sort of basic emergency first aid, so bit of a varied week, a lot of first aid this week, but the moving and handling were a nice change. Really nice group of people, all carers. A nice variety, because there were people as young as sort of 19, 20 through to like 60 odd year olds, men and women, and people from all sorts of different backgrounds. So we'd got a couple of people who were sort of Bolton born and bred, thick PK accents and whatnot. Yeah. But then there were a couple of the women on that were of a sort of Pakistani descent, and they'd moved to Britain and then got jobs as carers, so they're doing the training to progress and stuff. So really good, yeah, good week.
Just in regards to the moving and positioning course that you did, what's the sort of what's the main elements of it? Like what sort of talk us through that?
So a lot, to be fair,
it's not something I've ever got involved.
A lot of it is based around like legislation and, frankly, covering your own arse, because you're dealing with service users, they call them in care, but basically patients who are, typically speaking, they're vulnerable, which is why they're needing carers. So a lot of it is around ticking your box to make sure you know what you can and can't do, but then it's just around moving people safely, not only for their benefit, so you don't injure them and harm them, but also for yourself. A lot of the issues around moving and handling, and moving and handling and manual handling are pretty much the same thing. Manual handling, though, you're moving an object, so a microphone, a box, a table, a chair. Moving and handling, you're moving a person, but the principles are still the same. So it's about how to do it and how to do it safely, so we aren't causing injury to yourself as well. But then the practical side of it is a lot around sort of how we use the equipment that's provided. So I use hoists, I use slings, I would move people in chairs, I would move them on turners and stuff like that. So it's a really good course, but it is quite intense because there is a lot of like legislation around it, to be fair, because obviously the areas you're dealing in, it is potentially minefields, legislative, speaking. But yeah, good week. Yeah, good week. Long week. Looking forward to 5 o'clock today. But yeah, good week. Really good week.
Your game tomorrow?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
You got your first win last week?
Second win.
Second win, sorry. My bad. Sorry.
Don't discredit us too much. Yeah, second win last week. Away against a team called the Caribbean. Sadly, they don't play in the Caribbean because that would have been a nice away day. Play up top side of Sheffield, little place called Ecclesfield. They're kind of up that way. So yeah, be a good game, and then hopefully another 3 points that are badly needed.
For people who don't know, Dan saves lives in the week, I'd say, and at the weekend he's Jose Mourinho.
He's certainly not. No. I think he wins more in his sleep than we've done recently. Cisco Munoz, Sheffield Wednesday manager, sacked. No wins. 12 games, 4 draws, 8 defeats. That's about my level. I think Played 9.
Are you applying for the job then?
Played 9-1-2. Now we've got no manager now, haven't we? And he seems alright. I mean, he's not winning many, but he's ticking all the right boxes for people. And
I think he's getting the core principles set in place in it for the club and just sort of restabilising where we're at. So, unfortunately, because we are both wet Sheffield Wednesday fans.
There's not enough tea in China for me to be Sheffield Wednesday, unfortunately.
Are you happy the football's back on though now the international break's over?
Yeah, international break is terrible.
It's boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so boring.
Funnily enough, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. England team now are probably as good as I've seen in my lifetime, but they're boring. It's just, there's no fun watching them.
No.
And I think, drifting into like Match a Day podcast here, but everybody's trying to play like Man City and keep ball, and it is boring.
Mm-hmm.
But you're primarily watching goalkeeper pass it to a defender, pass it to another defender, to another defender, to another defender, back to goalkeeper, to a defender. Oh, we'll not want into midfield, but then we'll go back to defender, goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, defender. Just get it forward and play. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting we start talking Tony Pulis tactics and start lumping it long, but yeah, I find it quite boring to watch. To be fair, England.
But did you say like Pep Guardiola has ruined football? Like the new style of football is ruined because that's how you win games. So you play a bit boring now.
I think the fact I don't think he's. I think he's put it to an absolute another level. But I think the thing that's ruined it is everybody's trying to copy him.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, to be fair, if you've got Man City on telly or Liverpool on next channel, I'd watch Liverpool. Because everything they do is front foot, they go forward quickly, but they still play nice football. They get it on the floor, they move it back, but it's quick and they go forward, and it's exciting to watch. Whereas Man City, when they get into that last end of field, everything's like lightning.
Yeah.
But it's the 2/3 before it where it's slow, and they'll have 10 seconds that you just think that is unbelievable. But you have to watch a minute and a half of pass, and they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And they just bore teams to death and run them ragged so that they're knackered and then they go through them. Whereas somebody like Liverpool, it's just a bit like Man United used to be in the 90s. It was just get it forward, get it wide, get some crosses into the box and score goals. Still good football. But
And now it's just Maguire pinging it left of field to Garnacho for a full game. Oh.
yeah, this just. I mean, I thought we've got it bad as Wednesday fans. I think Man United. You'd be honest, could probably do a few hours on them and what's wrong there. But I mean, there's people far better qualified than us to see that. But I don't think it takes. I don't think it takes Pep Guardiola to look at that and think what's wrong. You can see him lining up this kind of.
Do you take anything from your day-to-day work life into being a football manager? Does anything cross over?
I think some of it does, in the sense of take it away from football and just say as a manager, because whether it's football or it's work, I think if you can communicate with people effectively, you've got a very, very good chance of getting them to do. When I say getting them to do what you want, I don't mean like manipulating them, but getting them to follow what you're asking them to do. Because ultimately, if at work you've been given a position of leadership, so as a manager or a foreman or whatever it may be, you're there to give instructions to people, and it's same with football, same with any cricket, rugby, anything. If you can make people buy into what you're trying to tell them, it's half the battle. Because then actually from there on in, that most people know what to do, but it's convincing them that there's different ways of doing it. So the outcome is the same. The outcome is football, win the game. The outcome in the business is make profit. But it's the way to do it. And that's where I think if you can communicate well with people, it's half the battle. And like I said, whether that's football work, if you can get people to buy into what you're trying to achieve, you've not quite cracked it, but you're a long way towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly off subject of that, but how work linked with the football. So last week we played a team from Barnsley, Athersley, we were 2-1 up with about 20 minutes left. One of their players tackled, one of our players, one of theirs, come together, collide, and their lads fell on the floor and he's kind of got his arm across his chest. So we're stood in our dugout just kind of talking away, thinking, well, in a minute he'll get up and carry on playing. About 5 minutes later, this lad's still sat there. So I walked across and just said, like, to the referee, what's happening? Thinking, we're only winning our second game of the season here, so we don't want to stop this. Let's carry on. The ref said he thinks he's broke his collarbone. So, here we go. This could be curtains, because this lad's got no intention of moving. He'll always broke his collarbone. He's got no intention of moving off the field, but he's probably 5 yards in both directions away from the corner flag, so he could have quite easily moved across.
But is that advisable in a first aid point of view, or from a...
Yeah, it obviously everything's slightly specific. So a broken collarbone on one person is slightly different to it on another person. It's the same bone, but it all depends on how it's broke, who it is, how old they are, how frail they are. There's loads of circumstances. But in this scenario, really there was nothing stopping this lad moving. It's not affecting his legs in any way, so he could have quite easily knelt up and moved to the side. But, so I said to their sort of trainer would come across, first aid bag, and I said, right, best thing you could do for him, if he's done it, he's going to need to go to hospital, okay? But the best thing you could do, pop him in a sling so that his arm's stable and there's no movement, and then he's hopefully going to be as still as possible. You can get him to hospital and get him checked out and see what he's actually done. So what you got in your first aid bag, and basically I just opened a big bag of nothing except empty wrappers. I like that sound. Sent somebody to our dugout to get ours, which is, as everybody would hope, fully stocked, all the right equipment and everything's bound to be, obviously, because what I do for work. But all we needed was a triangular bandage and we put a little safety pin. So the problem is terrible weather in the middle of Barnsley, wind, air, freezing, raining. So popped a sling on him, but then trying to, basically in our first aid bag, we've got all our safety pins, there's probably a dozen, but they're all looped onto one safety pin, so that they're not just loads of safety pins rummaging around the bottom of the bag. So bear in mind, it's blowing a gale, it's throwing it down, it's freezing. Trying to get this one safety pin up from the rest of them, my fingers are like ice. So, but luckily I got it off, just tightened it up at the back just to keep it nice and secure. And then because he was comfortable with his arm, he felt comfortable to then stand up and move off to the side. And somebody popped him in the car and took him off to A&E. So, work and play, let's say, they do sometimes fall hand in hand, and it's just one of them scenarios. And to be fair, I kind of made a joke out of it when I were on one of my courses this week and said, kind of, you do your first aid course, and a lot of people think that's box ticked, I'm not going to use that, but you never know when you're going to see it. Kind of, when it comes to Saturday and Sunday, I switch off. I don't really think about work, because I think that's football on a Saturday, play with kids on a Sunday. But then Saturday comes, and obviously we have to do that. The guy who I run the team with, one of our mates, walked back to dugout after I'd done it, and we moved the lad outside. We're walking back to the dugout, and as I get closer, all I can hear is, "When a hero comes." Oh, brilliant. The phone going with music playing. So yeah. So we're sending an invoice to Affersley Recreation Football Club for my time. No, yeah. But yeah, so to be fair, it was nice to be able to do it, help the lad out, also helped us out, because obviously we then got the game on, finished it off, scored another goal, won 3-1. So yeah.
That's an advertisement and a half, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Marble training there.
Marble training's got 3 points.
Did the other team not have anyone in position to be able to
So the lad who came over with the first aid bag said he was first aid trained. Obviously I'm not, where's the certificate, but it makes me doubtful whether he was or not, for the fact that he's kind of stood there with an empty first aid kit and not being able to make a decisive action. The thing with something as simple as a sling, even if you have no first aid kit to hand, you can make one out of shirt, basically. Put the shirt up
The
over.
concept of a sling is to support
Just
the injured
yeah.
element of the body, which is most likely going to be one or both of your arms. So all you're doing is strapping it in a certain way to support it.
It's just
so
hold.
not
It's just to
bouncing around.
hold it and make sure that your movement's restricted, so that you can't make an injury anything further. But yeah, so just popped him in a support sling, sent him on his way. But yeah, it's one of those that talking to when I was at the school on Wednesday. One of the people I was training with, one of the trainers said like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to report them? And I'm like, report them to who? I've told them, and told their, so I had a conversation with their chairman, because he went down and just said, look, you need to make sure that's there, because God forbid something serious happens and you're not, adequately prepared, you could potentially put money players at risk. One thing I will say for him though, really good, and you don't see it in most places, is got a defib on site.
Oh, brilliant.
So you don't see that very often at a lot of football clubs. Becoming more common, but yeah, and signage probably, as you can see it now, signage probably half the side of that board to say where it was as well. So really well signposted. The fact they've got one's great. Just need a bit more first aid kit.
There were an article which I come across a little bit ago about a defib, about it not working, or
So
the
it's
batteries ran out or something.
No, it's not that it wasn't working, it's not through batteries. Basically what it was, it wasn't too far from here, Carlton, in Worksop, which is about 10 miles from us. Probably not quite as far as that actually. It was either, I think it was a plumber who was working on a refurbishment of a building. But unfortunately, the power to the building had been isolated. It had to be turned back on so they could do the test of the work he'd done, and was then supposed to have been isolated again so he could carry out further work, but it hadn't been isolated. So it was electrocuted on site, and the people who were on site with him ran to the nearest co-op shop. A lot of co-ops have defibs. The co-op did. They gave them the defib and said, take that, go and do what you need to do. The problem was the defib had been given out to somebody previously where they thought someone had a cardiac arrest. Turns out they hadn't, so it was given back to the store, but nobody had checked it. And the problem was, when they put the defib on the person originally, the first person, excuse me, they'd not put the pads back in the box. So they've got a defib and no pads to actually connect it to the body. So the defib without the pads is effectively useless, and that's the problem. There was nothing wrong with the defib as such, apart from the fact it had not got the pads. So there's a big sort of thing online now, and a lot of speculation about what the punishment could potentially be for the co-op potentially. And unfortunately, this gentleman's lost his life. He potentially, even had the pads been with the defib, he potentially could have still lost his life. However, he's got a far greater chance of survival with the defib than he has without. One of the things they say is, if you perform CPR alone on somebody, you've got a chance of survival of about 6%. If you perform CPR on somebody and you have a defib with you, you've got a 74% chance of survival. So, whilst potentially, he could have lost his life with a defib, still, there's a chance that he might not have. So, it is, it's heartbreaking really, but it is one of those things that unfortunately has happened, and it has to be something that we as a community and as a country learn from.
I'm quite surprised that the co-op's got one in this scenario. I'm quite surprised that, especially for the construction industry, obviously the high-risk work activities that are taking place, I'm surprised that there's nothing that's come into place to say every single construction site over this size or this value or is going to or go over this amount of time. I'm surprised they've not stipulated to say you've got to have a defib on site. I've not come across that in my line of work and with what I know. I could be wrong.
No, you're not. But the problem is, unfortunately, as with most things,
It'll come down to cost.
boils down to
yeah,
cost. And
which is obviously wrong. But
the amount of conversations I've had with people with regards to defibs and money is awful, really. I'm a big believer in where we live up in Sheffield. Our little tiny mining village is about 2,500 people live here, and in the last 10 years there'll have been 4, I think, brand new housing estates in the village.
oh, yeah.
Now those houses, let's say there's a new development going up, and I think there's about 25 houses that all sell for anywhere between 250 and probably 400 grand. So I'm not the best at maths, but let's say the average is 300 and there's 25 houses. That is, what's that? About 7.5 million quid.
Something like that. Far,
7.5 million quid. You can buy a defibrillator for as little as £700-800. So if you can't take less than £1,000 profit out of your, obviously your 7.5 million quid's not profit, but let's say they're making a 10% profit on it, it's 750 grand. If you can't take less than £1,000 of that to put a defibrillator on the entrance to every new build housing estate in Britain, there's something wrong. Because every house on there then has access to that life-saving piece of equipment within, and with new build housing estates are tightly packed in, within probably 500, 600, 700 yards of their front door, there is a defibrillator.
You could do that with every single construction site. Obviously, when companies price these big tenders or these big housing developments, they might be coming out with anywhere between 10 to 20% profit. So you think spending around about £1,000, it doesn't really touch sides in a sense.
Absolutely.
And also the thing is that it's not a one-use thing. As long as it's maintained and looked after, you can use it, so it can go from site to site. So really, these larger companies, housing developments, should really be doing it. I think, from obviously knowing that now.
It's one of those things that I've said for I don't know how long, and to me it makes no sense whatsoever. One of the awful things about it's not about defibs, but related to that subject of defibs is people only really start to want to know about them and what they do when it's too late, when they've lost somebody. People become advocates for things because they either lose somebody or they potentially have almost lost somebody. You see so many people who are ambassadors for defib charities or defib companies because they've suffered a cardiac arrest. Understandably so, but nobody does it before they've had one. It's very, very few and far between, and actually we all know somebody who's potentially either had a cardiac arrest or is at potential risk of heart issues. And actually, for the money, like I said, for the money they cost, you can buy one for 700-800 quid. And the example I've just given, they are so cheap relative to what they do. If you boil it down to a simple question and asked it to 100 people, I would imagine all 100 people would say, is your life worth 800 quid? Yes, it is. So, all these companies that do it, like I said, I don't know how many times I've signed petitions and this conversation with people. To me, it's absolutely ludicrous. And you could cover, I mean, we're quite fortunate in Kiverton. There's about 9 defibs in Kiverton. There's about 9 defibs covering a village that's probably no longer than a mile long, and it's got about 2,500 people living here. So we are so fortunate. But there's areas that don't. There's areas that don't have access to them. And there's some areas that may have a defib there, but it's behind a locked gate. So you can only use it between hours of 8 and 5, or it makes it really difficult. There's a neighbouring village to us. The community, the parish council, has been kind enough to donate a defibrillator for the sports facility they've got. But again, it's locked. It's locked of an evening about 7 o'clock at night. So God forbid somebody was to have a cardiac arrest at 7:15. What do you do? And it's one that for me I really can't understand. Businesses could take a view of we take the hit of 700-800 quid and call it a hit. Fine, galling, and even though I've just said it myself, take the view of we'll donate this out of our profits, but think of what good publicity we get. So even just to do it for, even if you don't, which is awful, but even if you don't care that someone benefits from it, you just get the credence and somebody potentially benefits from it. I find it unbelievable that people don't do it. I find it absolutely unbelievable that people don't do it. But not such a light-hearted subject now, but it is important. It is important.
I have seen a change in the defibs. Like, they are popping up in a lot more areas now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And there's just been, I think it's £1 million project by the government to install them in community centres, into like community venues, so you can bid to get. And some of them are totally fully funded, so you apply for the funding, you get it, and they install. Some of them are match funded, so if it's 800 quid defib, if you raise 400, they'll give you the other 400 out of this £1 million pot. So that is really good. But I think if companies that are making all this money could contribute that a little bit more, and they could offset it as for tax reasons as a charitable donation, or whatever. So there's there are other reasons around doing it. The government aren't necessarily having to fund it, or they can continue funding it and we'll get twice the amount, which is better still. And if they don't fund that, they may then fund something else that we need. So I do think there are companies out there that could certainly contribute a little bit more from what they're taking in terms of profits out of certain projects.
And taking that back to first aid, and you said there's like no law for having a defib on site in construction. Do you think there should be more laws for things like that, like first aid, defibs? Like, why do you not think that's in place already?
So you do have laws there are laws in place and acts and regulations and whatever else you want to call them around having adequate first aid provision, but it's difficult to say. So if you went down having a blanket, every construction site in Britain must have access to a defibrillator. What does access mean? Does it mean you can get to one? Does it mean you have it on site? That
would be the scenario in like co-op. There's obviously one within so many yards, and you've been able to access it.
Yeah.
I think what I was trying to say earlier is that the larger sites where some housing developments can take anywhere from 12 months to 24 months to 36 months, and I think they're the sites. What I was sort of saying is that they're probably the ones where you need to have something on site. Just in case.
I would find it very difficult to have it defined in law as to who needs to do that. I think probably an easier way of doing it, and one that's more manageable, is there are a lot of, especially in construction, there are a lot of like quality and audit schemes, such as things like CHAS, Safe Contractor. You'll know more of these than me, but systems and policies in place such as those that mean if you have that accreditation, so you are CHAS accredited or Safe Contractor accredited or whatever, it means you've passed quite rigorous procedures to show that you have certain levels of quality, competency, health and safety procedures in place, so that you aren't a cowboy builder, let's say. It would be easier and more manageable to have something put in that system to say, to earn CHAS accredited status, you must supply all sites over X amount in value, or X amount projected build date, so any site over a 4-week project, or anything over a £250,000 value, or because all this stuff has to be outlined at planning stages. To earn CHAS accredited status, you have to have a defib on those sites. Now that then doesn't excuse the site that's £249,000 and lasts for 3 weeks and 6 days. But you have to define something. So you have to give a limit, because if you don't, it's far too open-ended. Because what happens if, let's say this office we're in now, we need a plug socket changing. Technically speaking, that is therefore then a construction site. So does that person that's going to be in here for 10 minutes have to have a defib and a full risk assessment and method statement around using defib prepared for a 10-minute job? So it's very difficult to define in law, I believe, for that reason. But if you were to outline it in a quality audit and accreditation stage, it's probably more manageable, because it's an old saying, but it separates the wheat from the chaff. Anybody who is a top end building contractor who wants to prove their quality, competence, their beliefs for the staff, the public, and their customers, end users, would include that. So that's a way around it, I think. But again, it all boils down to cost.
Yeah.
Are those contractors going to want a wheat into their bottom line? Because ultimately, 99.9% of companies in Britain are there for bottom line figure. That's it. All they want is profit. And the way they go about it, I'm not saying that people are sort of immoral and things like that, but the way they go about it is kind of secondary for some people. As long as they make that profit, they will be willing to cut corners, and we see that in the fact that HSE have to investigate people and issue fines and things like that every year. So it shows that people are willing to do that for ultimately that bottom line figure. So again, another quite light-hearted one, but it's a good point.
Yeah.
Because it's true. It's hard to define. It's hard to define how you're going to make people do that if you get to the root of doing that.
It's sad to even get to that point that we're having this discussion, because you should just want one from human to human, isn't it?
Yeah.
The possibility of saving a life. That's why you should get one.
And Ash made a good point, to be fair. They are mobile, so you could most and I'll go back to sort of anything over the value of maybe £250,000 will probably have some sort of site office as well on that project. So that site office can have a defibrillator on a hook or on a shelf. There you go, big sign outside, defib located here. When that set of cabins, when that job's finished, that set of cabins is picked up, moved to the next place, dropped there, and it'll sit there for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 6 months, whatever it may be. After that 6 months, pick up, move it, we're working here now. And so defib battery life, depending on obviously which ones you buy, the more money you spend, the better the battery life tends to be. Can be anywhere between sort of 5 and 10 years. So it's not like you're making that investment every 6 months. So, and actually, God forbid it ever is used, you know its value then anyway, because you potentially save somebody's life with it. So, yeah, it's all about.
And just to put it out there, because obviously we talked about all the defibs will be put in the villages and things like that. Do you know how they work? So if someone's in that situation, what do they do?
So basically, a defib is as easy as take it out of the packaging, whatever it may be in. Some will be in a box that you have to open. Some will literally just be the defib. So it is the size of similar size to a tablet, like a handheld tablet.
Yeah.
Similar size, width, height as that, probably the depth of quite a thick laptop computer. But they all have, you'll get semi-automatic and you get automatic. Semi-automatic will have a power button and it'll have a shock button. An automatic will have a power button. They've got 2 pads. The pads will have a picture on to tell you exactly where to place them. And once the defib knows the pads are connected, which it will sense itself, it will then talk to you and tell you exactly what to do. So actually, the only thing you need to be able to do is, I nearly said read. You don't actually need to be able to read because it's pictures. So the pads have a picture on them. So if you can't read, or it's someone foreign who can't read English, they can still see a picture on the pad of a body with a pad in that location. The other one will have a pad in that location. A power button, which is a universal symbol, circle with a line through the top of it generally, to turn it on, and the shock button generally will have like a picture of a lightning bolt. Some you may not even need to press the shock button, it'll do it for you, but they will talk to you as well while they're working. So they're designed so that anybody of pretty much any age, any ability to read, any language can use them. And they're designed for that way because they're so important. So simple to use. We might be able to do a video of showing you how simple it is to use one, to be fair, and stick that up online, because actually I think that's probably a really good one to do next, because it would be of a massive benefit. But like I said, we do a lot of the stuff at schools. So our local high school, Wales High School, where we both went, I was there last week or week before?
Last week.
Last couple of weeks anyway, weren't it? Yeah. And basically did 5 one-hour sessions through the day for Year 8 students, so again 12, 13, on how to use a defib. and how to do CPR. And one of the things that I was saying to him is, I'm not going to tell you how it works. The only thing I'm going to tell you is, the first thing you need to do is press that on button. And I'm not going to... And basically, everyone who did it, turned it on, and then the defib started saying, put pads onto the patient's bare chest.
Yeah.
So they look at the pads and go, oh right, so I have to put that one there. That one goes there. Right, then the defib will say, analysing patient's heart rhythm, do not touch the patient. So they step back and don't touch him. Shock advised. Charging, so they're still stood waiting. Press shock button now. So they press the shock button and the thing then says, start CPR. So start CPR. And it is as simple as that. They are so easy to use. And they're 12, 13-year-old school kids. Some of those who may have learning difficulties. Some of those who may be A-star students. It's not ACE anymore, is it? It's numbers now, but whichever way it goes, 1s or 9s, whichever's the good one. So some might be 1s, some might be 9s, some might be A-star, some might be F. But every single one of them will be able to use that, because it is as simple as turn it on and then shut up and listen, and it'll tell you exactly what to do. It's so easy to use and it's so important. Like I said, 6% chance of survival without using a defib, CPR alone. CPR, but you've got a defib, 74%. So it's absolutely huge. I know it's a chance I'd rather have.
Definitely.
That's a great way to end it.
Super.
Alright, that's been the Marvel Training Podcast with me, Richard.
Ash.
Down.
See you next week.